All right. Okay. Welcome back to Mastering You, the Lifestyle Performance Podcast. And so today we have a really exciting interview with Sarah Cooke, and this is part two of an interview with someone that I actually haven't met before. So this is really exciting when I get to talk to someone that we've literally just had a couple of minutes before starting, just to kind of get to know each other a little bit. So I am going to ask as many questions as I can to find out as much about Sarah, but also to share as many lessons as we can, because Sarah's got a really awesome story to tell, and that I haven't heard either. So welcome to the podcast, Sarah. How are you doing?
Thank you. Yeah, really good. Thank you. Great to be here.
How have you been coping through these crazy pandemic times?
Certainly been a different few months, hasn't it? I think very different to what everyone expected 2020 to be. But for me, it's been really, really busy. So as we were talking about earlier, I'm a marketing and business coach for health and wellness professionals. And obviously the health and wellness industry, as well as many other industries over the last few months, have kind of taken a bit of a battering, and businesses being forced to close temporarily and, pivot and have big changes. So yeah, it's been great to be able to support people, but obviously been a huge juggle because I've got two little ones at home and husband's now working from home as well. So life is definitely very different.
Yeah, life is crazy different, isn't it? Do you think there'll be, what positives in terms of differences? There's obviously going to be some negatives for some time. Our studios, gyms are still closed at the moment. We're hoping to hear some news this week, potentially opening in the next week or two. Our members are biting at the bit to get back to training. But I don't know about you, I kind of feel like there's going to be lots of positives that will come out of it as well. But it's probably not as easy to see them at the moment because everyone's just stressed.
Yeah, but, I'm seeing lots of positives already, actually. Even sort of several clients of mine have had their best ever months over the last few months, because they kind of recognized right at the beginning that things were going to change, and that if they were to be successful and carry on being successful, they'd need to shift and be quite quick in making changes. So not just pivoting, but looking at ways to, I suppose, future-proof their business and plug holes that they needed to, but also look for other opportunities. And I think for me, that's been the biggest thing that I've noticed in a positive way, is that sort of really intentional focus of going, right, I cannot control a lot of things, but I'm going to focus on the things I can control. And those people that have been able to do that have seen the success. I think that's really important.
Yeah. And do you think, so also people that even don't have a business and have been made redundant, or I've been speaking to a lot of our members that were kind of not really enjoying their job before this happened, and it's given them chance to kind of rethink their career, rethink what they want to do with their life.
Definitely. It's definitely a crossroads, isn't it? And I think we've always been forced into making decisions as to what we want to do with our lives, and I think that brings up a scary side, but it also brings up a positive side of opportunity if you're open to that. And I think that's, there's this sort of model called Sarah, actually, ironically, that kind of starts with shock. And I think a lot of people, we all just went into shock when kind of lockdown happened.
Yeah.
And then there's kind of, moving into anger, realization, and then taking action, and then humor. So that's the kind of Sarah model, which I love, because I think it just, whatever changes we have, we all seem to go through that sort of cycle. We go back and forwards through it, but I think when we start hitting that sort of realization and action mode, you can find ways to be positive about things.
Yeah, I'm a big believer of it sounds a bit corny, but the bigger light comes from the bigger the darkness. And if you go into the dark, you tend to find the bigger bright lights, and that sort of shows up a lot. You hear all these stories from people that have had trauma in their life and then come back and it's something I sort of see a lot. Definitely, I'm a big kind of I like to study behavior of people and sort of the psychology, and so just on that, actually. So what I've got a few snippets of your journey to where you are right now. Do you mind just sort of telling us how you got to becoming like a wellness coach?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, no, it's been a bit of a journey. It's probably the best way to start. I've had ups and downs, but I think, everyone has ups and downs, and it's what you do with that kind of brings you to where you want to be. And I think, I've always loved health and wellness. It's always been kind of part of me. I played a lot of sport when I was younger, and that led me into playing for England. I played lacrosse for England. But during that time, I also had a really bad injury where I ripped a lot of ligaments and tendons, had to have foot reconstruction, and that meant that I couldn't play sport for a year, which, being a sporty person, was really tough.
Yeah.
And, I had to learn to walk again. And I think that was kind of my first sort of foray into, oh my goodness, like this is something I can't control. But actually I could control how I dealt with it. I could control what I did. And that was sort of my first kind of mindset shift, I think. And I was fairly young. So that was around I was about 19, 20 when that happened.
Right. Okay. How long had you been playing lacrosse for up until that point?
So I'd been playing lacrosse since I was about 12, but playing for England probably for about 2 years before that. And so I kind of made a decision as to, am I going to let this kind of change my life and not walk and not be able to play sport again? Yeah. Or is this something that I'm going to have to deal with? And, I'm going to get stronger. I'm going to do the exercises that I've been set by the physio, but also kind of look at other things that I can do whilst I'm not able to exercise or, do the things that I wanted to do. And that then just sort of took me into, I played a lot of sports. I did a lot of different things, but I got back into swimming again and, yoga and things that would kind of strengthen different parts of my body so that when I could actually then walk again, I was still able to kind of use the strength, both mentally and physically, I guess, of kind of just finding other ways to. So exercise has always been my kind of stress release and my thinking time. And that's, I realized is that actually, if I don't have that in my life, then I'm not going to be a very nice person. It's but we all are different, and we've all got our different ways of kind of stress release and thinking time, but for me that's what it is. And so I think as I kind of got older, I'd always thought, okay, there's something bigger in this connection between how we feel, how we internally feel, as well as external, physical health, mental health, and kind of pursued a career in health, and worked for a really big corporate health company across various different sort of, I suppose, different areas within health. So allergy, pain relief, nutrition, weight loss, smoking cessation, which I found fascinating because, it's similar to you. I love understanding why people do the things they do and why they buy the brands they do and that sort of psychological thing behind it. And as much as I loved my job, the hours were pretty full on. I was in marketing, brand strategy and business development and sales. So kind of quite broad, but I kind of got to a point where we were living in London, and just felt like we were on the hamster wheel a little bit. So decided that something needed to change. So we actually pursued a job. My husband and I, we moved to Singapore, which we thought was going to be for a year. Neither of us had done a kind of a gap year traveling.
And how old were you at this point?
26 we were.
Right, okay. So it's a good age to do a little bit,
Yeah, so we were fairly freshly married and just kind of thought, you know what, we're not ready to settle down, not ready to have kids yet. Want to see a bit more of the world. Now's kind of the time to do it.
Yeah.
So 1 year turned into 7 years.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And I think, and 2 kids later, I guess, as well. But yeah, so I was still working in corporate at that time when we moved abroad. And I was then regional marketing manager for the whole of Southeast Asia. So I had a lot of traveling. And at the point I became pregnant with my first child, I kind of had that change in priorities. And I think realized that actually, you can't be pulled in all the different directions and being good at everything. And I think I was having various, not problems at work, but there were various sort of toxic relationships going on that I was being pulled into. And that was really hard. And I think when I became pregnant, it just was, yeah, your priorities just shift a little bit.
A little bit.
Yeah, well, exactly. And then I think, and then I had my baby, but that's kind of a separate story in itself, because it was a really horrific labor, lasted about 3 days.
Oh, geez.
He came out and nearly died. And again, that was a massive shift in priorities of going, actually, is this really what I want to be doing? You know, I was obviously hundreds of miles away from family and friends, being in a different part of the world. And if with only, I think I only had 2 months maternity leave as well. And so that sort of really forced me into making a decision as to, do I want to go back into the corporate world where I'm going to be traveling, I'm going to be working long hours, not going to see my child? So I really struggled kind of physically and mentally, not just from the birth, but also kind of decision making. And, you know, the reason I had a child is because I wanted to be a mum and we wanted to have a family, not for me to kind of be pulled in all these different directions. And I think when we nearly lost him, it was another kind of wake up call of going, right, corporate's probably not going to be the place for me, but I still love health and wellness. So what am I going to do? And it was about, I think it was about, my little boy was about 4 months old. And in the middle of the night, when you're doing another night feed and you're having that kind of Groundhog Day of being a new mum, and just thinking, okay, I need something for me. And I think because I've always worked and I've always loved working and loved that environment, and I loved being a mum, but it wasn't fulfilling me enough to be as good a mum as I wanted to be. I still needed that thing for myself. I needed that adult headspace. So yeah, about 4 o'clock in the morning, I decided that I was going to pursue my passion in more of the holistic health side. So I retrained as a holistic health and massage therapist. Signed up literally 4 o'clock in the morning.
Wow, that's crazy.
And just thought, right, it's now. I've got to do it now.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes you do have those moments, don't you, of just going, right, that's that tipping point. I'm just going to crack on and do it. And I've never looked back, really. So that happened very quickly. I qualified quite quickly. I did it all within his nap times and when he was sleeping.
Wow.
And then, yeah, became fully booked within about 5 months, which was incredible and not expected. And I think I probably took for granted, really, what I'd learnt within my corporate world of
the marketing and
sales and things like that. I knew what I needed to do.
Yeah.
And so, but that kind of came with its own pressures, because being fully booked means that you hit an income ceiling and you don't have the flexibility for your family again. So I had that realization again that actually things needed to shift, and I needed to find a way to have a sustainable business that also enables me to hit my financial goals, hit my lifestyle goals. And I think that was the kind of big shift for me, was going, okay, well, what can I do that enables me to do what I love, fit around my children? It's that holy grail, isn't it? We all want to do something that we love, but also, you know, have the finances that we want. But
freedom.
Yeah, it is. It's that one big word, and that's the word that kept coming back to me, of going, I just want this freedom. And you know, it's not easy. But
I think that's, sorry to interrupt. I think for me, that I was having this conversation with another coach, in that's probably the overlying issue with the last 4 months for many people, is that many of their normal freedoms have been taken away. You know, whether it's the freedom of being able to work because you can't, or the freedom of time. Like, yes, you've got the freedom of time, but you also sort of having to spend it at home all the time. And then the financial freedom, like if people are losing their jobs and they're worried about finances, it's all of these freedoms. There's lots of people out there that sort of all their freedoms have been taken away from them. Freedom of choice has been really restricted, hasn't it? You know, we can't go anywhere, we can't do anything, and it's
no, and you can't plan for the future either in some ways, can you? Because you don't know what's going to happen. Our decision making is based on the government's decision, which happens every couple of weeks, and that can shift, and you're just sort of playing by someone else's rules, I guess, and that is hard.
You sort of, it's not until something like this happens you realize, like, you take your freedom for granted to some extent, don't you? You don't realize how much freedom you have. I wonder if it's going to wake a lot of people up to, you know, when you get the freedom back, what are you going to do with it? because people create, like you've sort of shared, how you've overcome, the lack of freedom, whether it be because you've been fully booked, and then you're like, okay, I'm fully booked now. So what do I do to get the freedom back? Okay, I've got a ceiling on how much I can earn. What can I do to scale the business further so I have more freedom? And I find that from coaching people for like 12 years that a lot of people don't have that sort of, that they don't realize that you can have that thought process. You don't have to settle for being restricted.
It's I think not until you hit that point of not having any choice do you start thinking about ways that you can do. I think, as we were talking earlier, like you really have to get to that dark point to start going. You either have that moment of going, this is it, I can't do anything about it, or you go, this isn't it, I have to do something about it. And that's where I hit of going, I just can't stay in this position. I'm not going to be the person that either I want to be, that I like. I'm not going to be the mum that I want to be. So something had to shift. And the only person that could shift it was me.
What do you think that made you have that kind of light bulb moment? Why is it you had that and lots of people don't, to be blunt? Like why do people get stuck? Because I said to you before we started, the topic of work is one that I think about a lot. But it's so complicated to talk about, because firstly, you don't want to, I found as a personal trainer for many years, I didn't have the, how can I put it? It wasn't in my lane to say, well, maybe you want to look at a career change, because I knew what the answer would be. Well, I've got a mortgage to pay, I've got bills to pay, I've got children, and I'd understand that. But being more kind of like having like a bit of an entrepreneurial mindset, I always think, well, what are you doing to look for a better option? But so what with you, what was it that kind of triggered you to say, well, there's got to be a better way? It sounds like you had a pretty good life in Singapore.
Yeah, we loved it. But I think in some ways that was the trigger for me going, something's got to change. I think because I didn't have that option of going back to work in some ways, with only having 2 months maternity leave and having zero help for my childcare, it was either, okay, I have to get a nanny in, or, a helper that can have my child from 6 weeks old and I go back to full-time work, or I have to make a change and I have to do something different. So that was kind of a big part of it. I think the other part was that during those kind of few weeks of being a new mum and kind of almost looking back of, I guess that sort of previous bit of before I actually went on maternity leave, of going, well, did I actually really enjoy my job? Did I enjoy it? Which bits did I enjoy? Which bits didn't? And I think yes, I enjoyed the kind of connection with people and the travel and that kind of thing. I really didn't enjoy the corporate politics and that side of things, which I know a lot of people do. And I could see myself going down this route of burnout. And I just kind of, I think then coupled with the birth that I had and the sort of problems that we had after that, it really kind of took me into this really deep emotional place where I was like, this isn't how I planned my life. I wanted to be happy and I wasn't happy. And I think by leaving that role that I was in, I probably realized I wasn't as happy as I thought I was. It was fulfilling me because of the things that I could do with it and the lifestyle that I was able to have with it. But actually what the sort of crux of that role wasn't necessarily what I wanted. Because I was working all the hours. Yes, I had the money coming in that enabled me to do some of the things. I think that's important. If you are working all the hours and you don't have that sort of lifestyle side of things, that can be really hard. If you've got a balance between working really hard and you've got something else going on that's for you, that can work. I actually went through a process. It's a Japanese tool called Ikigai. Don't know if you've heard of it. It's
write that down. How do you spell that?
Ikigai. So it's Ikigai. And I would highly recommend anyone doing this who's just feeling a little bit stuck. And it's basically pulls together your purpose and your passion. And it might sound a bit woo-woo if you're not into this kind of thing, but
anyone that's been listening to this podcast up to this point will know that nothing's non-woo-woo. I even did a podcast about woo-woo topics.
Yeah, and I think I think when you're open to that, there are lots of things that you can kind of draw on. But it gets you to look at, what do you enjoy about your life, and what are you good at? What are your strengths? What are you interested in? And then it kind of pulls in as what does the world need right now? How can you help other people? And I love to help people. And it's part of the reason that I did go into health and wellness, not because I've always been interested, but I love helping people. I'm a bit of a giver, probably too much sometimes, and that's probably why I lead to burnout, or did lead to burnout.
Yeah, I can recognise with that. I can empathise with that. I think it goes with the job of being a coach to some extent, doesn't it?
Definitely. You take on other people's kind of feelings too, don't you?
Yeah.
And so, I went through this process, and out of that came that, similar to what we've been speaking about, I love my health and wellness. I love having the freedom. I love the flexibility. But I know I can help a lot of people within the health and wellness space who don't have that business and marketing experience, because I've spent years doing it. I did a degree in it. I spent years doing it, been successful in it, and obviously had my own holistic health practice. And I think it kind of all came together. And that's when the light bulb moment went on, was going, do you know what? I can make a real difference, but I can create something that is more than just in person helping people with massage therapy. I can do that too, but actually it's that ripple effect of, if I can help other therapists and health professionals, then actually I can help a lot more people feel good and healthier and happier about themselves and their lives.
So with the holistic therapies that you're offering, what was the typical main types of people that were coming to you? What were they struggling with? What did you
being a true marketeer, it was all about finding my kind of niche. And because I'm a kind of ex-athlete, because I was a kind of new postnatal mum, it was people with sports injuries, and wanting to get fitter from that side, but also pregnant ladies, postnatal mums were the kind of three main areas that I was focusing on. Purely because I could relate to them, they can relate to exactly what I've been through. So those were my kind of three core areas that I was working with people. And it's, I love helping people, I love making that difference. And one of the things that I loved, and probably similar to you, is that you can see real differences in people from the beginning of a session to the end of a session, both from that sort of mental and physical side. And for me, that was important. So now I can do that still, but help that sort of ripple effect with other people, helping more people as well.
So going back to the work, the whole subtopic of work, because there'll be a lot of mums listen to this as well. And I think it's a really interesting topic, particularly after post having children and getting back into career. Sometimes there's, a lot of females I've worked with, they sort of lack a bit of confidence in getting back onto the career ladder, if you like. But also, I don't know about you, I kind of feel like we live in a slightly different world than 10 years ago, in that I feel like there's way more opportunity to choose your own hours.
Yeah.
And this is why, I think, because we're sort of been conditioned to get a job, haven't we? Because we live in more of the gig economy now, I think there's never been more of a chance, even if you're not even entrepreneurial, even if you've just got, like you had, even if, not that you're not, but even if you've just got business skills, or if you've got skills that you've learned, whether it be at college, university, and past jobs, there's so many opportunities now to actually choose your own hours, and you don't have to be held down by, set 9 to 5 in a corporate job you're not completely fulfilled with, and you never get to see your children with. Is that something you sort of have conversations about, or you think about much?
Yeah, definitely. And I think in some ways, this sort of situation that we're all going through with coronavirus has proved that we don't all have to go to an office. No one's been able to go to an office for months. And I think flexible working is going to shift hugely, that, businesses are now realizing that they can still operate with people being at home and have that sort of flexible hours of, you know, showing up and having meetings from home rather than necessarily being in the office all day, every day. So I think there's going to be a massive shift in that. But I think you're right. I think there's going to be a big shift in, or big rise in the number of entrepreneurs, you know, as we come out of this, where either people have lost their jobs or people have gone, do you know what, I don't want this life anymore. I don't want to be conditioned into that 9 till 5, because I've got used to being flexible. I've got used to not having to do the commute. And the online world that we live in now means that you can do things in different ways. You know, whether that's setting up your own business, whether it's setting up your own side business and still do it, but you don't have to just have one stream of income. And I think that's what's really important, is that you don't have to rely on one thing. And that, you know, especially with as we were talking earlier of health and wellness professionals, where so many people have not been able to run their businesses because they are in person, that you've had to shift your model and move things online. But you've got different options, and giving your clients choice is just as important as you thinking about what works for you and how you want to run your life, is that you can have choice.
So so anyone listening to this, so what would your advice be to them who are at a little bit of a crossroads, you know, like you were? And obviously you recommended starting with that Ikigai. Is that how you pronounce it?
Yeah.
You know, what are the kind of strategies or tools should people look at?
I think it's one of those things that if you've got a passion about something, or if you're interested in something, then to explore how you could turn that into a revenue stream. You know, there are lots of different opportunities, as we, you know, given the online world. You don't have to have overheads. You don't have to buy expensive equipment and things like that. I would say that if you've got an idea, to test it. I'm one of those people that kind of thinks, well, if I don't do it, I'm always going to wonder what if and why. So I would always try something, even if it doesn't work. That's okay. I'd much rather try something and it not work out than kind of sit and go, oh, I wish I'd tried that. Oh, I've missed that opportunity.
You got to scratch the itch, haven't you?
yeah, definitely. I think so. I think that's kind of the big thing for now, is that we've almost been given this opportunity to go, actually, if you want to shift things, you can do. So to try it, and I'd highly recommend doing the Ikigai model, but also, you know, test it out. If there is something that whether it's product or service, if there's something that you are thinking about doing, then you can do. You know, one of the revenue streams that I set up when we're doing my therapies was a product business, and it was all mum and baby gifting, and that was related to my massage therapy business, because it was you know, those were the clients that I was seeing, so it was kind of an add-on for them. But I did that for about 3 years, and then I sold that business earlier this year because it wasn't fulfilling enough of what I wanted it to do. So I think it's also one of those things, you don't have to have a career for life anymore. You don't have to set out on a path and go, actually, I have to do this forever.
That's the big change, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. And it's okay to say, actually, I'm going to close the door on something and I'm going to pass that on, or I'm going to sell it, or, you know, whatever it is, that you can still make changes. You don't have to settle for what we're currently going through.
Yeah, I think it's probably all of this is a mindset thing, isn't it? You know, that probably the thing that holds people back from doing something is the belief in themselves, and the belief in, do I have the knowledge, do I have the capabilities to do X, Y, Z? Yeah. And like you said, unless you try, or you scratch the itch, you're never going to find out.
And I get it. It is scary. It is, you know, change is always scary. But there's a great phrase that I love, is that actually the one thing that is consistent in this world is change. And we never know what's going to happen. So for me, if I don't try things, then I'm always going to wonder what if. And I'm not very good at settling in some things. And that's probably why I love travel. I love exploring different cultures, how people do things differently. I love the psychology behind things. And it's kind of, it opens my eyes, which then opens opportunities.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. So with what was it that kept you from going to Singapore for 1 year to 7? Was it 7?
Yeah. So we were supposed to go for 1 year. It was a 1 year project for my husband's role.
Okay.
And we loved it. We were doing a lot of traveling, obviously it was pre-kids, so that was a little bit easier just to be a little bit more spontaneous. But yeah, we did a lot of traveling, and I miss that in some ways. But
have you been back at all, or?
We were back at Christmas, actually.
Oh, okay.
We've got some friends there at Christmas. So yeah, we've still got, and that's one of the things that I love about it, is that it's, it is a melting pot of different people from all around the world. And we've now got friends across the world. And that for me is amazing, because we can then, pick up the phone. My children have got friends in different parts of the world. And that's really exciting for them, that, as they get older, I hope they have a love for travel and will go off. As scary as that is to think that they're going to go off and disappear, but actually for me it's really important that you recognize that there are other things out there. There are different cultures, there's different ways of doing things. So yeah, I think it's an important part of growing and learning about different things.
Yeah, definitely. I think travel, I've been to Singapore and Australia, been doing quite a bit of traveling, and definitely has a big impact on you, doesn't it? How you think about the world, and in terms of what you sort of ran your business, or what was it you took from working in Singapore that you brought back into your business sort of today? And you said that you learned a lot of lessons working in the corporate world. What were the key lessons?
I think just having a bit of structure, being intentional with your time, focusing on the things that do actually make a difference. We can spend a lot of time being busy, but actually if we're not intentional with that, you can lose and waste a lot of time. I think being held accountable, with having a team around me, I now try and hold myself accountable. I think that was the biggest shift for me, of going from working within a team to then being on myself, was, I could kind of find excuses not to do things. There's always tomorrow when you're working on your own, but actually I had to bring some of that structure into it, of going, no, I'm not that, and I didn't work 9 till 5 because that was why I decided to set up on my own. But having set hours that were work time and set hours that were for me was good. And I think, working with a lot of sort of different cultures, Singaporeans, Chinese, different parts of Asia, Australians, everybody works in a slightly different way. We all have different ways of working. And I think it was about asking questions and really delving deep, because, there are cultural differences for different parts of the world, and what yes means doesn't always mean yes. So for me, it's about asking questions and really getting to that kind of core point as to what is it that's going on, or what is it that's not going on. And I think that's helped me with a coaching perspective, because I can drill down a little bit deeper, as to, rather than necessarily taking for granted what is on the surface, of going that 1 or 2 or 3 levels deeper to what actually people mean.
Okay, so what in terms of your coaching to coaches, what are the sort of the common mistakes or struggles that you find coaches or wellness businesses have?
The big thing that I find is I think people get so excited when they set up a new business, and they just want to run with it, which is great, and that is important. But there is a huge foundational piece as to what do that sort of financial side as well as lifestyle side. And if you've got the right foundations in place and you know where you're heading, then you've got that clarity on how to build that strategy, rather than having, scattergun approach of trying lots of different things and not really knowing if it's going to work. So yeah, it's just kind of honing that back down again and bringing it back into, what do you actually want?
Yes, what do you want?
Lovely, but what do you want?
I find that as a coach, like, more in the health and wellness space, obviously, the type of person that you coach, I find that there's so many similarities between how I would, if I was doing business coaching, for instance, it wouldn't be much different to how I do wellness coaching, because, you start with what do you want? You start with like the vision. What is it you actually want to achieve? I think so, it's so easy, and I understand why people do it with social media, and people get so caught up in other people's aspirations, right? So they see something online, or whether it's someone achieving a perfect body, or whether it's, the financial achievement, and they just want that. And then, or they think that they want that without realizing what goes into the process.
Yeah,
And
it's
then
that shiny object syndrome, isn't it? Of just seeing all these bright things going off that everyone looks like they're doing really well in, and thinking, oh, I'm going to have a piece of that. But if it doesn't align with what you want, then it's not going to work for you.
I don't think there's ever been a time where shiny object syndrome hasn't been worse,
Yeah,
you know,
definitely.
because it's just, I think the key for me, I don't know about you, is using it as inspiration. So if you see something that looks like, oh, wow, I wish I could do that, or use it as inspiration, but be really clear on still coming back to what's actually important to you.
Yeah, you've got to know your core values and why you're doing
Yeah.
what you're doing and what it's for. So yeah, that mission and vision is super important. And then I think also just knowing, you know, not just what you want, but who you want to work with. If you are running a business, you don't have to work with the people who you're told to work with. It's got to light you up. If it's, you know, it's got to be important enough for you to get up every morning and be excited about it.
I think that's a good metric, is am I waking up feeling like I'm looking forward to the day ahead? You know, not that I say that every single day I feel like that in my own business, but I must admit, like you said about working like long hours, when you do have a sort of a stronger vision or purpose behind your work, the hours just kind of, like, how long have we been going? I don't know, half an hour. Like, you know, it's great, you know, to do what I do, and I really enjoy it. And but then again, there are times when I have to do stuff that is as hard. But I think if you're waking up every day and you're dreading, you know, the whole, oh, I'm dreading Monday morning thing. Well, if you're going to work for 30, 40 years or
Yeah.
more, 50 years, you know, that's not, I don't think that's a great way to live your life. Like, like you say, find what is it that really kind of lights up in you to go and I don't even like the term work, but, you know, to actually go and create or do something that's of impact. And it, for me, like, again, it is a big topic because it just seems to affect people's health and their life in so many ways. So whether it's an office that's, you know, there's a bad culture, maybe it's a toxic culture and people aren't getting on very well, or maybe it's, you know, Sue's bringing in cakes every day and and there's a bad culture of health in terms of that there's no like healthy snacks available.
Yeah.
It's just cakes or, you know, bacon butties Friday and or whatever it is. And you know, it's not that I'm judging, but you can see how, because people use this when I'm doing like nutritional consultations with people, they'll talk about, well, it's really hard because my office has got loads of biscuits or there's loads of crisps, or have you, working in the corporate world, and particularly in a corporate world which was based on wellness, what was your experience of that? Was there a strong culture of health and wellness?
To a point. There were still biscuits in meeting rooms and things like that. So yeah, I think there was an overriding sense of trying to find that balance of kind of not necessarily flexibility, but managing your work and life balance. There was that overall ethos. I suppose the reality is that when you're busy in your jobs, that does shift because you still have to get your job done. So yeah, I think there was that, as I said, that kind of overriding ethos of trying to be healthy. Like, we had a gym on site. You were encouraged to kind of take breaks, and, you know, there were water coolers everywhere to keep you hydrated. So there definitely were those things.
So do you think there was a difference in the culture of health and wellness in the workplace in Singapore compared to the UK? Or is it just very subjective of the company?
It was, I suppose it was slightly different, actually. There were much more, so I was working in the head office in London, and I suppose there was more of that ethos there. The cultural shift to moving into Singapore in the office was that the hours were much stricter. So they would come in at a certain time, they would take their lunch break all at a certain time, they would finish at a certain time. So that was very structured. Whereas I was kind of doing a bit of a shift. I was doing a bit more of my UK job and working with some of my UK teams, so my hours were different. So that naturally meant that I was slightly different because I was coming in at a slightly different time, leaving at a different time. So I was therefore different. But the snacks were different. They definitely weren't as healthy. There were a lot more kind of sweet treats and things there.
Yeah.
But then, there was green tea available all the time. So it was, there was a kind of shift, but I suppose that's more of a kind of an Asian thing anyway, rather than necessarily from a kind of business perspective.
Less coffee.
Yeah, hardly any coffee. So it was kind of green tea was there available, or it was, and actually warm or cold water. So rather than just cold water, they had warm and cold kind of options to drink from. So yeah.
No, I think that we've got a long way to go to make workplaces and working cultures healthier, so that people feel obviously mental health is a big issue, but physical health obviously affects mental health, so it's all one, isn't it? I think there's a lot of work to be done. I think people are sitting down for too long. We work with a lot of people whose their hips and their legs are constantly tight because they're sitting down for way too long. It's an area that I'm really interested in, to be honest.
Definitely. It's knowing your own boundaries as well, I think. That's one of the things that I've taken out a lot from the last few months, is that I've had to work really strongly on my boundaries, especially with having the children around, especially with running my business. I have had to shift my working hours because I've pretty much been doing the kids during the day because my husband's job is not that flexible. So that's meant I've had to work many more evenings, but also my clients have now got their children around and they need to work evenings as well. And traditionally my working hours are not in the evenings because that's not necessarily when my energy is at its highest. But I've had to shift things. But what I have brought in as my boundary is that I have to do exercise every other morning. I've been going for a run, and then I've been times in the day where it's like, right, I need to do some yoga just to have that mental switch off as well as kind of physical stretch off as well.
Well, I'm guessing I think a lot of people think, if you're a coach or in the wellness space, that you're great all the time. Like, I'm guessing you get stressed and you get
stressed out. There's probably been a little bit more alcohol drunk and a little bit more chocolate eaten over the last few months. But it kind of goes back. I think, we all need to have those feel good factors, and whatever that is, if it is a glass of wine or whatever, but it's, if I have that, I'll make sure that I've done something else to kind of counterbalance it. So I've been really strict with myself and going, right, every other morning I'm going for a run, whatever the weather's doing, I have to do it, because if I don't do it, then I know that it's going to affect my stress levels and how I am with the children and how I show up for my business. So and I think I've been speaking to a few people actually through lockdown that, if they are working from home or they've been furloughed, you've suddenly got all this time, and it's easy to have those lions till 10 o'clock, and it's easy to start baking every day. And, yes, that's all lovely things, but actually, is that going to help you on your kind of longer term goals and paths? And suddenly we're now, fine for the first kind of few weeks where we didn't really know what was going on, but we're now kind of 4 months in.
I don't know. I'm not even sure what year it is anymore.
Yeah, exactly. And I think habits can change, can't they? So you do have to be strict with yourself to a certain degree. It's not to say you can't have fun. Of course you can. And that's actually been one of the best things that's come out for us as a sort of husband and wife team, is that we've seen a lot more of each other. We've made an effort every Saturday night. We have date night and we get dressed up. We make a nice dinner just for the two of us, that it's not with the kids. And that's been really nice, because it's just something to focus on that's slightly different from, and it means that every day is not the same.
I think what's been hard for a lot of people, is that if they've had like a structure, like a lot of people, like my wife's very, we're so different. So, I'm a bit here, there and everywhere. And my working day, I know what I've got to do, but I don't know where I'm going to be. But, usually I'll be driving somewhere. I'll stop here and work here for an hour. And I'm a bit here, there and everywhere. whereas she's very structured and organized.
Yeah.
And in some ways, this is what she's found difficult. And I think a lot of people who are a bit more kind of structured, and they have their times when they do this, and this is when they do this, and then that's all suddenly been thrown, you know, whereas I kind of, it came a bit more naturally to me, like, you know, okay, I'll just work a little bit here and do some homeschooling, and I'll do this. And I think particularly if you're ever in business, I think you're sort of almost used to that a bit more anyway, aren't you? Because you have to work with different clients, and you have to be able to be a bit flexible, and your hours aren't set. You know, your business is, to some extent, is always a little bit on your mind, because you think, oh, I've got to do this, got to do this.
Yeah.
Whereas if you do have like a 9 to 5 cut off, I can do my job and then go home, and then that's parked. That's in some ways that's nice, right? if you can just completely cut off. There are pluses and minuses.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think it's, you know, no judgment on anything really, is there? I think it's being at this time, we've all got different lifestyle going on. We've all got different work and business situations. And, you know, I think it's just kind of, we're all muddling through the best way we can do. And if we can do that in a positive way, or take some positives from it, then so much the better. But yeah, I think everyone's resilience has definitely been tested along the last few months, hasn't it?
Yeah, no, 100%. So just with what you do, you know, day to day, what are some sort of top strategies that you coach people through to build their brand, to build their business? Obviously, that's your expertise. You know, what are some of the top 2 or 3, any business owners or any coaches listen to this, you know, what are the sort of top 2 or 3 strategies that you typically start with?
Yeah, so I always take people back to the start in some ways of sense checking their mission and vision, because even if you've been in business for years and years, things change and you change as a person, and actually what you set out to do when you started isn't necessarily what you want to do kind of in the next few years, especially with what's going on. So I always take people right back to the beginning, sense check the sort of mission and vision and the foundations, make sure that they've got the right structures and processes in place, so that you don't then have to spend the time on that. You can then focus on growing, you can focusing on scaling, and, you know, depending on what their financial and lifestyle goals are, we'll put a bespoke plan in place to make sure that you hit those, because whatever works for one person isn't going to work for someone else, because you've all got different values, you've all got different goals. So, you know, we're talking about shiny object syndrome and having that sort of focus, and it really is about focusing on the things that make a difference for you as yourself, as well as for your business, and recognizing that you can't do everything all at the same time. So really focusing on, I work with people generally on a 3-month basis, because it's long enough to have results and to make change, but it's short enough to keep that focus. And I tend to break my year down into a kind of quarterly plan, I suppose, because it's all well and good having a kind of 5-year plan, and I love that, but actually things can change. So I kind of break that down into, you know, an annual and then a quarterly, because you can then focus. And it really is about, you know, attracting the right people that you want to work with, really nurturing those relationships. You know, business is done on relationships, it's not done by selling to people. So kind of helping people with that, and, you know, fostering and nurturing those relationships, showing up in the right places, but also making sure that you're providing the right products and services that your audience want and need, not what you want to produce and provide. And there is a slight difference.
Do you see that a lot as a common thread that one of the mistakes was made?
Yeah, definitely. And, you know, when I was going through my training and doing my qualifications, there is very little business and marketing training in there, but there is a kind of, this is how you should be doing your treatments. You should be doing, you know, 3 strokes to the left, 3 strokes to the right, or you should be doing 10 minutes on this. And that's not what customers need. From my experience, is that they need a treatment or a product or something that actually works to their problems. And having the confidence to be able to do that, and really understand and ask your audience what they need, and then you go off and do that, I think is a really key thing. So,
well, yeah, because you have to go against the norm quite a lot, don't you? You know, quite often what people actually want. is a bit different. I mean, my industry is a classic example. I mean, I guess you could use the word pivot. You know, I sort of pivoted about 6-7 years ago when I sort of positioned us different. Rather than being a personal training company, we became more about a holistic health and performance company. And that was just because of, well, my own backstory, my own experience. I had cancer when I was 27 and kind of reset the way I thought about health and wellness and life, I guess, you know, but this idea that, you know, if you want to get fit, you got to go to the gym. And, you know, I'm definitely not against that because I have a couple of gym facilities, but the idea that piece of the puzzle is the one thing that you need to do is just, you know, yes, it is a big part, like moving every day, like you said, it's relieves stress, you know, it has so many benefits. But, you know, there's so many other aspects to making that sustainable. And so that was my big change is getting people to look a bit more inside themselves and why is it important to me to live a healthy life, and, you know, why am I going to start eating healthier foods, and actually what does health actually mean to me, you know, rather than just trying to keep up with the Instagram models. You know, why do I want to feel, you know, or be fitter? But that did, like, it felt really hard. Looking back, I kind of like laugh about it, but it was for me to lose the word personal training in my sort of company name was like losing who I thought I was. And I think it took me a good couple of years to really embrace it. And because my thought process was, no one's going to want to hear about all your mindset stuff, Matt. All that's like woo woo, and, you know, people just want to get exercise, and they just want to lift some weights, and they just want to play with some battle ropes. That's who you are, you know. But so it took overcoming a lot of limiting beliefs. You know, my deep down, I was like, you know, people need to connect with their why more. We need to do more work with that. We need to get people clear on what sort of life they want, how they want to use their fitness to live their best life. And that's going to mean that we're probably not going to attract all of the gym bunnies that gyms would attract. But the people we are going to attract are people that buy into the concept of, you know, they really care about my life. This company, you know, they really want us to live healthier lives. And so, but yeah, it takes time. You have to do. I think you do have to do the work. You have to do the personal development work. You have to know who you are, know what's important. I did the same with this podcast. We were just chatting just before we started, and I said I've been procrastinating on this for 2 years. And so what I did in the end is I wrote down, and I think I even shared this on the first episode. I wrote down all the reasons why I was going to do it. Not for business reasons at all, just for personal development. Having conversations like this, I wanted to become better at interviewing people or talking to people. I wanted to, you know, make more connections, learn. You know, I've learned today from you, learned last week from Jen. And once you get clear on all those reasons, then all the self-doubts of how people judge me, and will I be able to set up all the tech, you know, to do it, all of those kind of like disappeared. And I was just like, I'm just going to just start and just have some conversations and share some wisdom.
And I think having fun with it as well, you know, that is part of the why, isn't it? Of kind of, why are you doing this? Why are we living the lives that we're living? Whether it's business or otherwise, we've got to have a bit of fun. Like, there's so many serious things going on. We have to have a bit of fun with things.
I think that's absolutely crucial. Like, you know, if anyone, like we've been talking about work, and people maybe listen to this thinking about career changes or reflecting on how fulfilled they are in what they're doing. And I think joy is one of those things that everyone should be using as a bit of a benchmark. You know, is there joy, you know, when I'm doing this? Because you might be doing it for another 20, 30 years. So, yeah, so no, I really enjoyed this conversation. Last question I'm going to start asking to people is what influences have you had along the way that have impacted you the most sort of positively, whether it be like books or courses or mentors, or even movies, or what things stick in your mind is like, I read that book, or I did that course, and that paved the way to where I am today. Is there any top twos or threes?
Yeah, I think the Ikigai model that I mentioned earlier was a big game changer for me, of kind of just going, actually, I can do something that I'm passionate about and that I feel like I'm here to serve people with. It doesn't mean that I have to kind of give everything constantly without getting anything back. And I can have that lifestyle that I want to with work. That was a big game changer for me. I think also, living in a different part of the world, which I know is, not many people get the chance to do in the grand scheme of things, and just being open to different cultures, different ways of doing things, seeing a huge amount of poverty and really realizing how privileged I am, in the grand scheme of things, that if I'm to live the life that I want to and to have an impact, I can do that if I channel that and if I'm intentional with it. And because of the journey that I've been on and the sort of areas of struggles, I guess, that I've been on both physically and emotionally, that I can help other people. I know that there are people who are feeling in a stuck position, that I can share my story. I can hopefully inspire people to make a change, however small it is, and have that little ripple effect. And I think the other part is that, the online world, I follow various different coaches and see how they make money, but from a sort of semi-passive, passive income way, that actually you don't have to be in person all the time. And that was a bit of a game changer, that when I, obviously years ago, I kind of realized that, and I started building up my own business like that. But it wasn't until I saw other people doing that, but really scaling it, that I thought, you know what, there is legs on this. And even just, you don't have to have 2 different revenue streams. You could have 13 different revenue streams and still that's okay. And I think, it's a big shift, because traditionally we're brought up to go to school, go to uni or college, or get further qualifications, go into that 9-to-5 job, and maybe change that job every so often, but carry that through until you retire. And that's not really what I want to do. So I think
I think that model of living is, do you not think it's done?
I think so. I think it really is. I think, right now we're kind of proving it as well, that it's,
education in itself, we could probably do a whole podcast just bashing education, but I think, education needs to, I think it will transform for the better as well.
Yeah.
And I think even just like you said, just being a mum and going back to work, and you said earlier that you didn't want to just settle and just be, there was more, you wanted to still be your own person and still have your own fulfillment. And I think like that, you want to be a sort of leader for your children as well, right? It doesn't make sense to just have children and just show them how to have children and that be the end goal. You want to inspire them as well.
Definitely. It's interesting, actually. That's just made me think about the time that I was at school, and I had, and you have your kind of careers chat advice with the careers teacher, who's not really a careers teacher. She's more of a kind of sideline thing. And I said to her, I want to combine health with business. And she came back and said, you have to be a physio. That's the only thing you could be, is to be a physio. And I was like, I don't want to be a physio. Ironically, I've kind of followed that and kind of gone on to do massage and holistic therapies. But that was, in her eyes, that was my
Do you think that planted the seed?
Quite possibly.
Weird, isn't it?
I have a little bit of a rebel streak in me of going, okay, well, if I'm told I can't do something, maybe there's a way I can find that I can do it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Well, okay, well, thanks so much for jumping on, and it's been really cool to chat. So anyone listening in who's really curious to find out more about what you do, where can they go? Is there any websites or any social media platforms?
Yeah, no, I'm on the usual social media platforms. So Facebook and Instagram. So I'm Sarah Cooke Coaching, and my website is sarahcookemarketing.com. So yeah, no, thank you for having me. It's been great to chat with you.
Yeah, no, it's been really cool. I'm sure we'll keep in contact, and maybe we'll do this again at a later point. Hopefully when we're out of pandemic.
Yes, different story to tell then.
maybe next year the world would be a far better place. But thanks again, Sarah, and take care.